Every entrepreneur has one. The moment you decide to start your own business, your story begins. And if you're like most business owners, your plan and your reality can end up being miles apart. Welcome to PTC TV and our series entitled The Journey. Each week, we will be talking to business owners about their business journey. Our hope is that by sharing these stories, others may find understanding, inspiration, and the will to succeed. So let me ask you, what's your story? Welcome to The Journey, brought to you by Pull the Chute. I'm your host, Jeff Cecil, and today I'm here with Monte Hill. He's the CEO of OnTrac. So Monte, welcome to the show. Appreciate it.
Thank you for having me, Jeff. I appreciate it.
So Monte, before we get started, I always like to just give whoever I'm interviewing them to give a little bit about their background so that whoever's watching the show kind of understands what you're about and where you came from. So if you could you do that for us, please?
Yeah, sure. So, pretty much the telecommunications industry has been a long-term uh, food on the table industry for me. My father started out as a lineman back in the late 1960s, Jeff, back when cable was the new thing, right? And
Right.
so
And barely the new thing
started
back then.
Yeah. And so my childhood consisted of um, every time dad would get an opportunity, we'd move and he'd transfer. So
Wow.
it ended up in several different places across the country as my dad followed his career in the cable industry. And ultimately, that's what led me to where I am today. I didn't really know that this is the precise place on the journey that I would be. And I always took more of the approach of just being a really good steward with whatever you're entrusted with at the moment, and that the next good thing would come along. And but that's a little bit about my history and how I got into telecommunications,
Sure.
and then the unique spot that I'm in now and how that's grown.
Well, appreciate that. And so where are you in the country?
So I'm in Knoxville, Tennessee.
Okay,
That's
very
where
cool.
our headquarters is. Um, this is our 20th year, so we've
Wow.
just gone through some transitions ourselves. We were real fortunate to get in early in fiber to the home or fiber to the user. And my first two partners have just gone through a transition of retirement.
Okay.
So new partners coming on board, a new board to report to, and
Wow.
new directives. And so we're in that unique season of change, which is always the case, right? So just if
Yeah.
you don't like change, that's the wrong place to be, because there's always a steady dose of it. And so
Yeah.
that's where we are now. We've slimmed down our corporate functions. It's interesting because COVID didn't really drive that, but it accentuated it. As we looked around and saw the new normal, and you start to investigating, you have partners that are retiring, you
Hmm.
realize that you've gotten heavy on the corporate side. And
Sure.
so we've done more to get lean and mean, and even operationally push what would have been considered corporate features
Hmm.
out to our operations more and more. And so we're in the midst of some of those sort of changes right now.
Oh, that's great. I mean, and I say that's great. It's a lot of work. I get that. I've lived through it, but it's always, to me, always important to take that step back. I always tell people, pull the chute is all about, taking a moment and kind of reassessing where things are at. It sounds like that's what you guys are doing. Then you're making some changes as you go through, and that's hopefully building a much stronger foundation and a better business going forward.
Yes, I believe in that. It's been interesting in my personal journey because this is the first time in my career that I've actually had the majority of the shares within an organization. And while that feels liberating, the message that I wanted and that I want, we're still in the midst of that message and that messaging. Uh, the trust aspect was important for me, that the stewardship that we have with our employees and our customers, that they know that the first decisions that I made were to put myself under accountability. I've seen a lot of companies sprint really fast and hard and do well,
Mm.
and then the guy at the top starts thinking that he's a little bit more blessed than other people and takes liberties that he shouldn't take, and or that she shouldn't take, and then you turn around and you have something that was really great that's not been tended to well and can go the other direction. So really important for my personal benefit and for employees and our customers, um, reporting to a strong board, get strong financial vision from the board, and also how we would best serve our customers and what the new vision to carry forward is. So a lot of change, a lot of accountability. I know that's an overused word probably. In reality, you could outvote your board and you could run them off if they didn't do as you wanted, but that's sort of to miss the point. You're wanting to bring wisdom and people that care enough about you to pull you aside and go, Hill, why'd you do that? That was a bad move, And so we're in the midst of forming those kinds of leadership things right now within our company.
That's amazing. I love the aspect and the precise ability that you're taking to hold yourself, not only yourself accountable, but others in the industry, in the company as well. How is that being
It's fear,
received?
Jeff. I could just screw the whole thing up.
Yeah. Yeah, well, and that's happens at times, I mean, we all think we know exactly where we need to be. It's funny. I always tell people, look, I always want to surround myself with people that know more than I do, and fill voids that I have. And I'm always asking them, what am I missing? Because I can't have all the answers. That's one of the biggest things for business owners. Once they get past you don't have to know all the answers, and you don't, you can rely on your people, the business explodes. I mean, once they start looking at their people and going, what do you need to do your job better? Right. And they can now feel like they can actually say what they need because you've built this great culture, which it sounds like you're doing right now. So
Mm.
that is really, really amazing. So you said 20 years, you were celebrating your 20-year anniversary. That's pretty incredible.
Yeah, Jeff, we were fortunate to get in the fiber broadband space early. It's funny to accentuate what you said. One of my newer board members pulled me aside in terms of developing your team,
Hmm.
and we've been real fortunate within that leadership team to have real low turnover, and many of the same people that started out with us on the journey are still there. And what that board member whispered to me, because I gave him freedom right off the bat, go have dialogue with different leadership within our organization without me present. Hear the good, bad, and the ugly. Hear what they have to say.
Love
And he
that.
said, and his take on that was, Monty, if you'll stay out of the way and let the guys that have grown into leadership do their thing, then we won't screw this up. And so that was liberating in that it really lets me do what's better within my skill set, which is how do I serve? How do I serve? They're
Right.
the engine of the company. I've got been fortunate to have a lot of wisdom and a lot of folks around me that have been driving this business forward for 20 years now. So let's not put unnecessary levels of bureaucracy in front of them. Let's trust them to do the things that they've been grown in the business to do,
Hmm.
and then figure out how I can feed that. And so, really, I look at almost like those ridges on either side of the interstate. If you doze a little bit and you hit
Yeah.
those bumps up, never done that. Those bumps over there. That's really the only time I might inject to keep us on course or mission is if I feel like we're really going to just go off the
Sure.
road. Outside of those sort of circumstances, really letting those folks that you trust and that have been with you for a while feel the liberty to take ownership. They may not have a share in the company, but they can really feel and act like owners if you give them that space. And that's
Sure.
been really true for us.
Yeah, good for you. Good for you. So, what have been some of the highs and lows over the last 20 years? You're doing fiber to the home, that's great. But there had to have been some areas, something that might have, you struggled with, or something that was really a great win. Tell us a little bit about something you struggled with first.
Wow. So I believe on the struggle, it's all a human business, right? And
Yeah,
so wow, I went into this just having turned 30, um, first child, just had first child, a lot of rose-colored glasses, didn't have anybody in front of me to really inform me about partnerships and how they worked,
sure.
and just assumed because the nature of the relationships that it would be all for one and one for all, and we would march off into the sunset together with it
Mhm.
being a mutual win for everybody. And maybe it's intentional that it's that way, or you'd never take off on the mission when you hit some of the hardships that
That's right.
you undoubtedly hit. And so I think early on, and really a theme was it's much like a marriage, the partnership thing. One of them failed along the way, resulted in a lot of heartache and money spent
Sure.
to make things right. And then to continue to maintain the partnership after that, when you have differences of opinion, and how to work through conflict management, and how to know when to stand up and fight for a principle versus when to fall back and
Mm-hmm.
not die on that mountain. And, when ego becomes involved, it's a terribly difficult thing to manage as well. And so a lot of those things, my mountains to climb have been in the area of interpersonal relationships and business partnerships, when you've got this fantastic thing to pursue and the partnership agrees on the pursuit, but you disagree on the method. So
Yeah.
what do you do when you disagree on method? And so really learning how to be transparent, be humble when it calls for it, be willing to stand your ground when that calls for it. Those struggles, we didn't have some of the traditional cash flow struggles that many new startups have. So that was a real reward,
Yeah.
in that we really didn't set out to let's build it and see if they will come.
Mm-hmm.
We're more from the vantage point of being a service company. What is a need and how can we fill it?
Right.
And so we found that niche within the fiber to the home space. A lot of municipals that were in tertiary markets that weren't getting uh, data or internet service with any
Mm-hmm.
kind of speeds had decided to take their destiny in their own hands and build these fiber optic networks,
Right. I
which was
remember.
wonderful. They were mostly electric co-ops and utilities, and so they didn't have a lot of telecom background. So that really left an opening for us to come in and still hire and train local, but serve a very real need that those utilities had. And so we
Yeah.
were fortunate to have the good cash flow, which protected us from some of our mistakes. And so that was real fortunate. So on the tough side, I think it's just people, right? People are a
Yep.
huge blessing, and people can be wherever people are. There are problems and conflict, and how do you make order out of things when you don't agree? And like any new company, we struggled with those things, still do, but we
Yeah.
have a better methodology for doing that now, and
Sure.
culture, and we built trust now after all this time. And so on the good side, we had good cash flow, got into a niche that there was a need, uh, but we had ourselves to deal with, and we would
Sure.
get in our own way sometimes.
Yeah, well, that's a big thing. I mean, I love the fact that you brought up about the egos because, I've been in several partnerships over the years. I've been entrepreneur for 30 years and several of them were with partnerships. And the first one was one that actually worked really well. We both knew our lanes. We did have differences of opinion sometime, but when push came to shove, one of us would kind of go, "All right, I'm going to trust you on this one,"
Mm,
and just kind of go through that process. And usually it worked out for the right. I mean, we kind of knew it was like, I know I really want to go down this path over here to the left. I know you want to go to the path to the right. I just really, I feel like I should be right, but I think I want to trust you more. We kind of got into that aspect of things, and it was a give and take. It was like you said, it was like a marriage. I mean, it really is, and we always worked hard not to let ego get in the way.
mm,
And honestly, what we would do a lot of times, we just say, you know what, let's go take a little bit of time and pray about it, and come back and see where our hearts are. And
yeah,
that usually, because when you get into the heat of the battle, sometimes just taking a moment, stepping away, and then coming back, it usually kind of things become clearer and better in that. So, that's one of the things that we've excelled on. So, but good for you guys that you had good cash flow. That probably really helped move things along, and that's good. Not every company can do that, but that's good. I'm excited for you. And you hit the perfect time. I mean, the big thing, fiber to the house. That was always the last mile, right? They always had
right,
fiber out of the street. They couldn't get it to the house.
right.
And everyone was complaining. It's like, look, I still got these slow speeds. Fiber's like literally 100 feet in front of my house. I just need to get it into my house.
That's right.
I
That's
remember
right.
I remember those days. So kudos to you guys. That's great. So you're kind of revamping everything today. In the process of new partners, new board, revamping some of the culture. It sounds like, and the way that you're going to go about things. Um, what's one of the biggest challenges right now?
Oh, well, undoubtedly, although I'm proud of our culture, and a lot of that had to do with my previous partners that have retired as well. They were fantastic. But the culture is always a challenge.
Yeah,
So we can create all the visions and aspirations that we want toward financial goals and metrics and
right.
KPIs, and our dashboards can all look pretty that we look, none of that matters if we can't continue to build the team and grow the number of
Hmm.
people. And especially for us, we build architecture. And so we have to turn up the numbers of people to go and do that. And so it's a different world than it was. And I always
Yeah.
felt really connected to and it felt young. Um, but at 51 years old, I'm already noticing, and it's hard to do. You have to be willing to look in the mirror. There's a significant gap between the way that I think about things and the demographic of the average person that's out in the field working for us. By way of example, I think I was probably the last graduating class from high school that learned on a manual typewriter, never had one computer course, never
Right.
had a cell phone. And I mean, that didn't come until later in college. So uh, I am an analog thinker. In fact, in note taking and in business meetings and board meetings, I'm the guy with the legal pad and the pen. Um, and that is not the way our average demographic of young folks working for us in the field. That's not how they think. That's not how they operate. So there's a disconnect there. And so we are trying to appeal to the things that we know are inherent within men and women. And that is, I want to be a part of something that's bigger than me, that I can matter and make a difference, that I can build a trade craft that can support my family, and there's upward mobility there. So we're hearkening out to all of those big principles, but in the method of how to, wow, there's all kinds of difference opinion, even with my own senior management team of, gee, how do we do that? We were in meetings today about, do we put up these fancy blogs for intercompany personnel to talk about all across the way? What
Right.
happens when there's someone that has less than good intentions for the organization? Does it give them a megaphone then to cause all kinds of negativity across the company? We don't want that. So
Yeah.
there's just all kinds of, for an analog guy like me, I'm better at one-on-one relationship like this. So when you think of being spread out across the country the way that we are, really being willing to seek wisdom on a lot of different layers on how we continue to build that culture. Because if we can't grow our folks, we
Yeah.
can't grow the company, and that's what we're charged to do.
That's right.
Right.
But
So
boy, you just hit my tagline, which is pull the chute, grow your people, grow your company.
yeah, yeah,
So I love
exactly.
that. Yeah, and you're spot on. Kudos to you guys for identifying the difference between, the baby boomers, the Gen Xers, the millennials, and the Gen Zers, right? And
Mhm.
and it's a big topic of conversation. Matter of fact, we just did a whole podcast on this with my voice and communications coach, because that's one of the things that she helps companies figure out is, how do I communicate across four different generations that in our lifetime, in the lifetime of the world, really never existed, because of all the change that has occurred with each one of them, right?
Mhm.
Technology changes have exponentially increased. And so, like you said, you're an analog kind of guy. That's the way I kind of grew up too. Um, I like to communicate in person like this, where, Gen Xers, you text them, right? And then, millennials, they're on a whole different, kind of playing level. And then Gen Zers, everything has to be online, and, they don't like the personal one-on-one stuff. They want to email and they want to text. And sometimes we have clients that says, don't ever email me, just text me. We're like, okay.
Right.
Which is hard sometimes, because there's a lot of things you want to say. So I just pick up the phone call. It's a lot easier.
There you go. There you
It works better. But kudos to you guys for realizing that there are those differences, and it's important to kind of figure that out, because the communications is key to your growth and where you're going to be. Okay, so we know where you're at today. You're revamping the company, putting some new pieces in place. You're now kind of in control. Partners have retired. Where do you think you want to be in, let's say, 3 years?
Well,
What's your
so
thoughts?
that's a great question. And first inaugural board meeting with new group is tomorrow morning, in fact, and the 3-year question is on everyone's mind. And so with that thought comes the idea of growing in ways that we haven't before. So a theme for me throughout my career has been stewardship, and it's not been to chase a particular dollar amount. It's been more about being faithful with that I'm entrusted in, and then the principle that it's a biblical principle, really, it grows if you're faithful to it. And so there's responsibility to serve our clients well and our employees well, and then the natural growth that has come from that. And we've done that slowly, methodically over the past 20 years. And so for us, we really feel like it's time for us to take advantage of the market and scale. We've built a name and a reputation, and we've got a depth in management that we did not have before. And so the idea is to turn these engines loose, show some trust. That's the first in our name, OnTrac. The T is trust. Show some trust, and let these folks do their job. And so the whole idea of scaling in ways that we haven't before is really exciting and a little bit scary at the same time.
Sure.
Because again, it all comes down to, it's not like we're in a factory where we're pumping out toothbrushes and we can just turn the widget up, instead of making 100 a minute, make 500 a minute. It's all the hard work that goes behind cultivating each employee to be able to go out and trade craft produce. And also the challenge that folks that are naturally good at this with their hands and craft aren't necessarily always good at this that we do. And even though, like you're talking about the different generations, some are less comfortable with this, but in my world, engaging someone at their business or their home requires face-to-face. And so there becomes a lot of time and energy into what are the things that make that customer experience comfortable, and what makes that service feel safe in someone else's home or their office or whatever the case may be. So the challenge is it's tedious, and a lot of one-on-one time goes into making someone good at that piece. And boy, it's deflating if you have turnover. And so we really want to be strategic and do a good job in picking the folks with the right aptitude, and that we're giving them the tools they need to be successful, and scaling in ways that we haven't before. So in terms of numbers for us, we're really thinking that there's a pretty real possibility that we can double our size in the next few years.
Good for you.
And again, that's not the primary pursuit, but we think that will be the reality of us being a good steward to what we've been entrusted. We've got the right leadership, we've got the right name within the market, and now just the hard work and turning people loose to do the right things. And so that's where we hope and pray to be in a few years, Jeff, but we'll see.
Awesome. I love it. I love it.
Yeah.
That's great. So, Monte, thank you so much. I got to wrap up here, but man, what a great story. What a great journey you've been on. Thank you for sharing with that. We hope others realize that, it's never easy. You got to go out there and you got to keep working at it, and you got to look and find new ways to do things. But the whole goal of these interviews is all to hopefully inspire others to realize that it is a journey, and you just got to keep pushing. You got to keep finding those ways to get through it, and hopefully you'll be successful. So, Monte, thank you so much for sharing your story.
Thanks for having me, Jeff. Have a great day.
No problem. And to the rest of you, until we talk again, stay safe, be healthy, and we hope you have a great day.
Conceptually, if I can think of one word that has ridden on this journey the whole time, it's been the word grit. And there are folks doing talks about that now. But for us, it's been a common denominator. And it's this idea, this belief, this trust that if you don't have to be the smartest guy in the room, you don't have to be the most gifted person in the room, but if you're willing to day in and day out grind to serve well, whether it's your employees or whether it's your client, that at the end of the day, you're going to be blessed for that. But there can be moments along the journey that you're really tested. Do I really believe in this? and
Mhm.
really having the stamina to stay with it. And my advice would be that you'll be honored by doing that. And those times when you're in the middle of it and feel like, man, when am I going to get some smooth waters coming my way?
Right.
Hang in there, because they will come. And they don't come very often. So pause to celebrate with your team when you do hit the smooth waters. But in the meanwhile, embrace the grit, because you'll end up there if your motivations are pure.
Love it. Love it. Thanks. Appreciate that story.
Yeah.